You're live with the guy. I'm Guy, and we're live. We also got Nat over here doing the production and the switching, and she'll be giving some commentary as well as reading articles. Why don't you say hi, Nat?
Hello.
Okay, we got a lot of big news. There is a new pope. It hasn't quite been announced. I have Nat checking out Twitter, so as soon as the name is announced, you will have that information. It was much like I predicted and said it would be. We'll get into that in a moment, but the headline story is Donald Trump. The tariffs are working. It went from a thought process of this is how we're going to implement tariffs to actually structuring the new deal. It gave a template to how deals are going to work with a lot of the allies in fully matured economies as well as emerging economies like Mexico. It looks like emerging economies may do a lot better than matured economies in this new economic structure that Donald Trump is trying to set up. Some other stories we may talk about is Victory Day. Trump gives praise to Russia. Trump also appoints a new health secretary, I believe it was. Surgeon General. California regulations on AI rules, as well as Trump now wants to rename the Persian Gulf into the Arabian Gulf. Okay, let's get right into it. Why don't we go with the smoke that they popped? And this was over in the Vatican. And we got a nice seagull there with white smoke. As you know, every day they pop smoke, either black or white. White means they haven't had a pope.
And white means they have had a pope.
Black means they haven't had a pope. White means they have. This is why the people are celebrating. There's been a pope picked. Now, I don't think this is a good sign whatsoever. What do I mean by this? If you've watched either this show or our other show, Nat and the Guy, what I've said is most likely what I thought would happen was within 3 days they would pick a pope. It would be a highly liberalized pope, a globalist, because Pope Francis, before he passed away, stacked the amount of cardinals within the Vatican. He personally appointed 87 cardinals and overstacked the entire Vatican from 120 cardinals to 137. This meant they almost had a 2/3 majority going into this conclave. Now, that being said, what I had also said, if it took more than a week, it would be a compromise pope, probably the Pope from Canada. And if it took a really long time, a month or more, then it would be the only chance for a traditional or conservative pope to take office. Now, I said the most likely scenario was 1 to 3 days. And what do we have? Day 2, they've already picked a pope. The only way this happens is if this is most likely the Pope's personal advisor, his right-hand man most likely. If not, it's still going to be a highly liberalized global pope. This is not good for the church. At least I don't believe it is. I would have much rather seen a traditional conservative pope. The best 4 candidates were that of traditional and conservative popes. I don't think that's going to happen. I will eat my words if a conservative pope is appointed, but we'll wait and see. That was the opening story. The original opening story was Trump. I have a ton of notes on this tariff deal with the UK. The story with the Pope kind of came up last minute. I put it in. Do you see any more news right now on X about who they've appointed? Nat? Oh, let me get my headphones here so I can watch some clips with you. Did you see any more news?
Not yet. No.
Not yet. Okay. Do you have any commentary on the Pope here?
Well, I mean, right now it's just waiting and seeing because it was so fast and because we had said that depending on how long it took, it probably indicates who it's going to be. I mean, we can probably guess.
Yeah. I don't think it's much of a guess. I was saying it very clear and very concise why I thought it would be a liberal pope, and I give an exact timeline of 3 days or less. If it happened in 3 days or less, that would mean a liberal globalist. Not too many other people were willing to go out on a limb and give predictions here. I feel a little bit vindicated, but we'll see when the name's released. Now, the big news when I woke up this morning was Trump was going to announce a new trade deal with the UK. Now, this is a deal they've been trying to cut for over 25 years. A lot of people don't know this, but the UK refused to cut in-depth economic deal with the U.S. for the past 25 years. Administration after administration wasn't able to do the deal, primarily because the UK, a lot like Canada, has a lot of tariff protections, meaning they tariff goods coming from other countries, specifically the U.S. Now, that being said, actually, why don't we get into the article a little bit? And then I'll go into some of the notes I made. I made really in-depth notes here.
Sure. So both countries will become stronger. Trump's trade deal will give U.S. more access to the UK economy. The deal will allow the United States to gain increased market access in the United Kingdom for billions of dollars worth of American exports.
Okay, now I do agree that this is going to keep the UK economy afloat and strong, but there was very little upside to this deal for the UK. It will weaken a lot of their industries, but it strengthens their alliance with the US, which it's looking right now. If he can replicate these trade deals that he did with the UK with other countries, the US is going to be the new center hub of the world economy. Where I'm going with this, there was a lot of upside for the US here. I mean, a ton of upside with very little upside for the UK. But because Trump brought in these massive tariff threats, which was basically the stick, it finally forced the UK to make the deal. And the deal they did make, they got preferential treatment. They were the first country put in line because they've been a long-term ally for these negotiations. Number one, they've been negotiating for about 4 months now. And there was something else I was going to say here. Oh, they were given a 10% tariff. What do I mean by that? I mean, they've dropped all their tariffs on the US, yet the US has kept a 10% tariff across the board. If they wouldn't have cut this deal, this 10% tariff was going to go up to a 25% tariff. Trump said this is the template for allies and countries that are in good standing with the US, but a 10% tariff is the starting, basically bottom of the barrel, best you're going to be able to negotiate for your country with the U.S. So every country is going to get a minimum of 10%, but it's going to go up from there depending on the relationship and the negotiation, how the negotiations go with the U.S. Okay, read a little bit more and then I'll get into my notes.
Sure. So President Donald Trump, joined by representatives from the United Kingdom in the Oval Office, announced on Thursday that the two countries will cut back on trade barriers in the first major trade deal for the president. The agreement will allow the United States to gain increased market access in the United Kingdom, the sixth largest economy in the world, for billions of dollars worth of American exports, according to Trump. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who spoke to the president over the phone, told Trump he is really pleased with the deal between the two allies. The final details are still being worked out, but Trump will keep some tariffs in place on British imports. The president emphasized that the deal would boost both countries' industrial bases and help protect steel.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so there was a really good question asked by reporters, and I thought this was the best question. And it had a good answer from Trump's negotiating team, who was standing there behind him, which was Witkoff. It was the bald gentleman standing next to J.D. Vance. So the reporter asked, did the deal include talks about freedom of speech or freedom of religion? And the answer was no. These were purely economic talks. And it almost seemed to me that they were implying all these negotiations that are going to happen economically with these tariff negotiations are going to be purely economic talks when it comes to China, India, Russia. They're not going to try to influence freedom of speech or freedom of religion in the country. J.D. Vance has made it very clear in multiple speeches now that him and the U.S. are not happy with the way the U.K. is treating freedom of speech and freedom of religion. It's not the Western way, and it's not the moral standard and the ideal that the United States is trying to strive for. But they left that out of this deal, and I think that's part of the reason they were able to negotiate such a good deal for the U.S. Okay, the next big talking point I had was, okay, everybody had said the tariffs wouldn't work. The tariffs wouldn't work. Nobody would negotiate with the U.S. What this showed today, this set the template from a very strong global player that the tariffs not only worked, They worked in a spectacular way. If he continues to make deals like this, he's going to completely restructure the global economy with the Western countries putting the U.S. at the center of the Western economy. The stock market is expected to boom today. Every single time Trump is going to go and get another deal with another country like Canada or Japan, the stock market will boom on that day. So it's very interesting how Trump is going to start cutting deal after deal after deal, and you may see a golden age for the U.S. here, and that's what Trump's really been talking about. Okay, one of the things that was talked about before this press conference was this trade deal is expected to mitigate tariffs on the film industry. The UK film industry is pretty big. There was a reporter that asked a direct question. I watched the entire press conference, including all the questions, and they asked about the film industry. He said that particular point of the deal is still being negotiated, but it was almost implied that they are a friendly country. So perhaps some of the right now, the film industry tariff is at 100%. I would expect that to lower on certain countries. We'll see if UK is one of those countries. They may not lower it because of the ideological woke influence within UK film. They may want to really keep the tariffs high on countries that have been captured ideologically. Okay, one of the other big points I think here is the Ukraine rare earth minerals deal was finalized by the Ukrainian government today, which is kind of huge. And I think that helped along this UK deal because the UK deal is backing Ukraine to the hilts. If you know what I've said in the past, I don't like the amount the EU is backing Ukraine or the US is backing Ukraine because I think they're trying to escalate to a broader war. That being said, it was Victory Day today. And if you don't know what Victory Day is, that's when the Allies won World War II. And Trump specifically commended Russia and their efforts in World War II, helping the Allies. If you don't know, Russia lost between 20 and 40 million people fighting Germany during that war. They made a bigger sacrifice than all other countries combined when we look at purely manpower. So it's it was very diplomatic for Trump to actually commend the Russians for their sacrifice in World War II in Russia. They take Victory Day very, very seriously, and it was a big commitment on their part. And the fact that Trump signed the minerals deal today, he really needed to kind of quell Russia's, I guess you would say, threats. They're not going to look at that mineral deal in a good light. So the fact that he is giving them credit for their efforts in World War II, kind of he's playing both sides right here. He's not able to negotiate a peace truce, but he is able to kind of be friends or economic partners to both sides, which was good. Okay, the next point here was UK to take down many tariffs they hold on the U.S. industries such as farming, chemicals, machinery, and other industrial products. Also, the fast tracking of American imports and goods into the UK. So they're fast tracking anything coming over from the U.S. into the UK markets. Part of the reason that was put into negotiation, it partners with the farming. All tariffs or most tariffs were lowered for U.S. agricultural goods to come into the country. When they're shipping agricultural goods overseas, they need them to make it through customs extremely quickly so it can make it to grocery stores and things like that. So U.S. products will be fast-tracked into the UK economy. Also, chemicals, machinery, and other industrial products. So these are the major industries on a nationalistic level. All the tariffs are lowered, and a lot of the tariffs on other things have been lowered. This is really good for the U.S. manufacturing, U.S. exporters. So let's go into the next. The Bank of England welcomed this U.S.-UK trade deal. England and the UK right now are in economic troubled times, so this deal is very much welcomed. It's going to drop the prices of goods within the UK, at least that's what I would expect. Rumors are that Canada is next in line for this trade deal. Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, went down to Washington the other day. He currently has his negotiating team negotiating with the White House. I fully expect it's going to be the exact same template that they gave the UK that they're going to try to give Canada. If Canada tries to play a hardball, Trump will just collapse that economy. So they're almost going to be forced into this deal. If they're able to negotiate the same deal the UK just did, they'll be lucky because the US has a lot more leverage over Canada than they did the UK. The next thing is, okay, this trade deal adds $5 billion in opportunities to U.S. exporters and manufacturers. Because the tariffs have been lowered into the UK market, the U.S. was kind of excluded from that market for a long, long time, and people just didn't export to the UK. With all these major tariffs coming down from the UK, allowing US products in, this is a potential $5 billion market for the US. They now enter as one of the primary players in the fourth largest economy in the world. It's sometimes ranked 4, 5, or 6. The next part of this tariff deal is they also kept the UK tariff at 10%, meaning the US didn't take down the tariff on the UK, but they prevented the US from increasing the tariff on the UK. So all goods coming from the UK, unless it has an explicit exemption, is going to have a 10% tariff on UK products. The US will implement that. This will produce $6 billion in revenue for the U.S. So on top of the $5 billion in exports to the UK, it increases another $6 billion within the U.S. economy. So it ends up being an immediate $11 billion boom for the U.S. economy. This was absolutely huge. The UK now favoring the US markets rather than other markets such as China. So all that being said, that was kind of my notes on this UK deal. It just happened. I just got finished writing the notes right before we went on air here. But some things I'll say about this. On paper, it looks like an extremely good deal for the US, a not so good deal for the UK, but it does float the UK economy, so it's not necessarily a bad deal. This also puts in a template for what I think the Canadian deal is going to look like and what all allied deals that are on good terms with the US should look like. It should look like a similar template to the UK. Now, that's for matured economies. Unmatured economies, if Trump works off this same trade template, mainly I would say Mexico. If Mexico is able to get the same deal, it has a huge upside for Mexico and very little downside. So emerging economies have a lot more to gain from a trade template with the US than Canada or the UK does. Mainly, Mexico doesn't have a lot of tariffs on US products to begin with. So it's going to be very easy for Mexico to agree to these terms if these are the terms they're offering. The one sticking point with a Mexico trade negotiation is going to be organized bad people within the country. That's going to be a talking point in these negotiations potentially. And if it is, I don't know how much leeway the Mexican government's going to have there. But if they are able to negotiate a similar deal to what the UK did, this is going to be a huge boom for the Mexican economy. Mexico could potentially become the new China. I currently live in Mexico City, and I'm looking forward to what happens with these trade negotiations. I really hope they leave out these organized bad people organizations out of the trade deal, much like they left free speech out of the trade deal and freedom of religion out of the trade deal in the UK. I don't know if they will. I know this is a huge sticking point for the US right now. They've recently tried to negotiate for US troops to come into Mexico, and Claudia Sheinbaum said, no way, we have sovereignty. But they did negotiate for intelligence organizations and intelligence troops to come in to assist the Mexican government. I believe they let in 300 intelligence agents to help the Mexican government recently.
And I'm interrupting because now apparently we do Habemus Papam.
Why don't you talk
New
about it?
Pope has been announced. It is Robert Francis Prevost from the U.S., elected as the 267th Pope, first American to become a Pope. Cardinal Robert Prevost, an American missionary who spent his career ministering Peru and leads the Vatican's powerful office of bishops, was elected the first American Pope in the 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church. Prevost, 69, took the name Leo XIV.
I don't know what to think about him because this is kind of a surprise. I don't know anything about this Pope at this point. The fact that he is from the U.S., I think they're trying to appease Trump and the West at this point. But that being said, they obviously want to be on good relations with the U.S., so appointing a U.S. Pope would naturally put them on good relations. This Pope would have direct access to the administration. But of all the popes I went over like 4 conservative popes. I went over the Pope's right-hand man. I went over 3 liberal popes. This was one pope that wasn't in there. Do you have any information on this guy right now?
Just what I just read. But opinion-wise, everybody's just kind of celebrating right now. So,
well, I'm sure liberal media, no matter what happens, they're going to celebrate. Man, I think this was a political pick, whether he's liberal or conservative.
He's from Chicago.
He's going to hold weight within the U.S. and the U.S. administration. I think when they were selecting this Pope, they knew the U.S. is restructuring the world economy right here, and it's going to be in their best interest to be close to U.S. politics and U.S. politicians. Even if the administration changes in 4 years, this is going to be a good pick economically for them. The fact that he is from Chicago is an extremely liberal city. So I'll have to get some more information on him, and we will be back tonight at 9:15 p.m. Mexico City time with Nat and the Guy live, and I will have a full rundown on who this guy is because this is the most interesting story for me today.
Apparently, he was appointed by Pope Francis, is a centrist, and he apparently was accused at some point of mishandling bad allegations.
Okay, the fact that he was appointed by Pope Francis, even though they're calling him a centrist, I would most likely guess he's highly liberal and a globalized liberal.
He's being called a centrist.
Yeah, but that they were calling a lot. When I was doing, I went through dozens of potential candidates, and everybody that we're calling a centrist was actually a globalist. So I'll have to get more information as it comes in, and I can't really trust the initial information that's coming in because I can't do in-depth research live on the air here. Do you have anything else you want to say about this guy, or stop, put down your notes for a minute. Just off the top of your head, what do you think about this guy?
Well, he's coming from America. He was appointed by Pope Francis. They're calling him a centrist, which essentially means not conservative.
Yeah.
And he's from the U.S., which is interesting given the power that the U.S. is trying to amass right now with Trump. What does it mean? Are they going to be in conflict with each other? Is he one more globalist, or but I mean, just the fact that he was appointed by Pope Francis kind of tells you everything.
The fact that he's from America, speaks English,
and he's young too.
He's going to
for a pope,
he's going to be there for a long time. But he's going to be able to, even if he ends up being a globalist, he's going to be able to negotiate the best possible economic deal for the Vatican. So I think we'll see. I think him and JD Vance, it's going to be very interesting when they meet. And that I would love to be a fly on the conversation in that room because JD Vance has gone hard at the Vatican. He's gone hard at freedom of speech, hard at freedom of religion. So I would love to see what's happening there. Okay, let's kind of move on. A lot of big stories. And I would just like to say one more time, and I know maybe it sounds like I'm repeating myself, but this tariff deal that Trump cut today, this is the first deal. And there is a lineup of countries right now that are currently in negotiations with the Trump administration. And this looks like a hard-nosed deal that had extreme benefits for the United States and will bring manufacturing back to the United States. It's opening up major markets to the U.S. that other countries just won't have. What does that mean? That means a lot of corporations are seeing this, and if you can get a few more deals along these same lines, which I think he's going to have no problem doing, this is going to have a massive influx of manufacturing coming back to the U.S. because now they're going to be able to export anywhere they want in the world with preferential treatment. So there was a little bit of uncertainty about the tariffs when Trump first brought them in. He kind of blew up the world economy, and then he went country by country and he's renegotiating. So far with this first deal, he's starting to look like a mastermind, but we'll see when these other deals start coming in. This does look like it could be very good for Mexico if they're able to structure a similar deal. Now, I already talked about Trump and Russia. And so let's go into the article about Trump wants to rename the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Gulf. And why don't you read a little bit of this if you can?
Yes.
And this is not a joke. What I'm going to go into here, when he first said he wanted to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, I kind of laughed it off and I didn't really understand the bigger picture. Now I'm seeing what he's actually doing, and I'll explain my thought process on this in just a moment. Yes, it's going to upset some people, but he's doing something with the global restructuring of the world. Why don't you read the article?
So Trump plans to announce that the U.S. will call the Persian Gulf the Arabian Gulf, officials say. Donald Trump plans to announce while on his trip to Saudi Arabia next week that the United States will now refer to the Persian Gulf as the Arabian Gulf or the Gulf of Arabia, according to 2 U.S. officials. Arab nations have pushed for a change to the geographic name of the body of water off the southern coast of Iran, while Iran has maintained its historic ties to the Gulf. The 2 U.S. officials spoke with the AP on Tuesday on condition of anonymity to discuss the matter. The White House and National Security Council did not immediately respond messages seeking comment. The Persian Gulf has been widely known by the name since the 16th century, although the usage of Gulf of Arabia and Arabian Gulf is dominant in many countries in the Middle East. The government of Iran, formerly Persia, threatened to sue Google in 2012 over the company's decision not to label the body of water at all on its maps.
Okay, so what I'm going to say here is he's kind of restructuring the world into poles. It's becoming a multipolar world, and that's why he's kind of blown up the world economy and restructuring individual deals with individual countries based on reciprocal tariffs. He's trying to make the North American pole and make America the center of that pole, but he doesn't have complete control, and he was starting to realize this of the whole global economy and the global infrastructure. But what he can do is try to influence who's in control of the other poles. So in the Middle East, Iran is kind of controlling that pole right now, and he wants to kind of put Saudi Arabia in charge of that pole. So by renaming the Gulf of what's it called right now? The Gulf of
The Persian Gulf.
It's called the Persian Gulf. He wants to rename it the Arabian Gulf after Saudi Arabia because the U.S. has close ties with Saudi Arabia. This is something Saudi Arabia wanted. This is really how they were able to negotiate the 7 peace accords in Israel last time, was with Saudi Arabia's help. Iran is looked at as a point of conflict, so they don't want to empower Iran in that region. So one small thing they can do is rename the Gulf, the Persian Gulf, to the Arabian Gulf. They do have a lot of influence over Google, so I think Google will follow the Trump administration's request here. It's going to be interesting, but he's going to do a lot of little things like this to try to get the world to view the different poles as the people that are allied with the United States. So Iran's not allied. Saudi Arabia is allied. So he wants to influence the world as when they look at the Middle East as looking at as that is Saudi Arabia's region or Saudi Arabia's pole. Okay, we can go on from there. Oh, wait, what did you think about this?
Nothing.
Well, because I thought it was a complete joke when he tried to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. But now when he's trying to rename other things on a global scale, which is it doesn't always benefit necessarily the U.S. directly, but indirectly it's benefiting their allies. And it really does seem like, to me, he's trying to empower the other poles that are aligned with the U.S. Do you think that's a good analysis or no?
I'm trying to figure out the articles right now, so I can't tell you.
Okay.
What do you want to go on to next?
Let's go into California regulators weaken AI rules, giving big tech more leeway to track you.
Yes.
And read a little bit of this again, and then I'll give you thoughts and feelings on this.
So California's first in the nation privacy agency is retreating from an attempt to regulate artificial intelligence and other forms of computer automation. The California Privacy Protection Agency was under pressure to back away from rules it drafted. Business groups, lawmakers, and Governor Gavin Newsom said they would be costly to businesses, potentially stifle innovation, and usurp the authority of the legislature, which proposed AI regulations have proliferated. In a unanimous vote last week, the agency's board watered down the rules, which impose safeguards on AI-like systems. Agency staff estimate that the changes reduce the cost for businesses to comply in the first year of enforcement from $834 million to $143 million, and predict that 90% of businesses initially required to comply will no longer have to do so. The retreat marks an important turn in an ongoing and heated debate over the board's role, created following the passage of state privacy legislation by lawmakers in 2018 and voters in 2020. The agency is the only body of its kind in the U.S.
Now, I am not a big fan of AI, the AI industry and things like this, but I do have a realist point of view. If the U.S. wants to compete with China, they're going to have to deregulate this industry. So they're going to have to deregulate it on a lot of levels. And I kind of follow these stories in depth. The other day, I said Trump was giving deregulation to many nuclear facilities that Google is going to build on site for their AI, what do you call it? Where all the computers are stored?
Data centers?
Yeah, AI data centers. So these AI data centers, Trump is giving special permission to build these nuclear power plants just for these AI data centers, and that's part of deregulation. They're going to need power in order to compete with China, but they also can't stifle what AI can do by over-regulating. And if they do, it's going to hinder what US AI models are capable of doing, and it's going to give a huge advantage to the Chinese. The two major players in this space right now is the US and the Chinese. Whoever wins this fight is going to have a huge advantage on the global stage and the global economy. That being said, a big talking point today of the U.S. tariff deal with or the U.S. economic deal with the UK was the tech sectors. They kept talking about how major deregulation between the two tech sectors of the UK and the US, and they were going to combine them in a lot of different ways in order to compete against China and other natural competitors. So the allies are kind of realizing this has major national security implications as well as military implications. So the AI tech sector is something that they're very aware of with these tariff negotiations when they're going into these different contract negotiations with Canada, with the UK, with Mexico, things like this. Okay, next we had Trump's new Surgeon General. And why don't we play this clip? Oh, yeah, I had two clips. I just want to play this one because it's a lot shorter.
This is coming from Benny Johnson.
Okay.
The thing that is so imperative for people to understand is that the reasons we're having surgery, the reasons why we're getting sick, the reasons why American competitiveness is plummeting, the reasons why our kids are chronically ill, half of the kids in America are chronically ill, are all from preventable issues. So if you're a doctor who's not spending any time on focusing on that, then unfortunately, for better or worse, you are bankrolling on the problem.
Okay, pause it for a sec. We're going to go back into it in just a minute, but she is seems highly committed to this. She's very passionate about this. She's speaking off the top of her head about this. This was the shorter clip. There was another like 6.5 minute clip where she went in depth, rattling off statistics, rattling off how the American government has previously failed the American people and put their health last. And she seems like a good choice. There is a little bit of scandal around her. I don't want to get into it quite yet because, again, this story just came up and I haven't been able to research the rumors, but she has done a lot of podcasts as of late and she does look like a good candidate. She's really aligned with the Maha movement and RFK Jr., which I like, and she's definitely headed in the right direction. Again, I'm going to link this story to the UK economic deal that came in. They are lowering regulations on US farmers, specifically U.S. cattle farmers. So the U.S. is now going to have access to that market for their cattle farming, which is a huge boom for the U.S. But one of the questions, again, the reporters asked great questions today. This is the benefits of having independent media getting to question the White House. They asked, will the U.K. actually allow this meat in because of steroids, hormones, GMOs, things like this? And Trump gave an honest answer. He said, well, they get to pick what they want to allow in. And he said the U.S. has all kinds of meat. They have triple grade A non-hormone meat. They have hormone injected meat, things like this. So if it doesn't meet UK regulations, they will exclude some of it, but a lot of it will be allowed in. Okay, let's continue with the clip.
Elon. I honestly think you're going to change the world. I mean that. I mean that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just had to say that.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here.
Oh, sorry. It's just so. Your description of your parents is
It brings me to tears.
Oh my gosh.
I cannot wait to have children. There is no greater role. There is no greater role in this world. And, I was sold such a bill of lies, like climb the climb the medical ladder, become the chair of an institution. I can think of no greater thing that we can do than have children and keep them healthy.
Yes.
Right. And I just, up until a couple years ago, I didn't even want to have children because I thought it was a liability to this value system of just like rise the ranks, make money. But I don't think there's anything more important we could be doing than creating healthy children who are thinking for themselves, who are eating healthy food. And I cannot wait for that role. And I think it's a spiritual corruption of our society right now that we have forgotten that this is the most important thing that we can do.
Okay, that's good. Were you able to hear that or no?
Yes.
Okay, so even if she wasn't the Surgeon General, the fact that a woman is coming out and speaking up publicly on a big platform like this on how she felt tricked by this liberal hierarchy, this global structure of climb the corporate ladder. You don't need children. You're doing the world a disservice if you do have children, to completely changing her frame of reference to that's the most important thing she can do. And it's good to hear that coming from not only her, but other people within the Trump administration, because if they have that outlook and it's not just them and making money, then they're going to want to leave the world a better place than when they came into it. And it's really a motivating factor of why these people are going to be harder to corrupt. I'm not going to say they're incorruptible, but it's going to be harder to corrupt people that want to leave a better world for their children than they had.
Well, she and her brother, she's Casey Means, her brother is Callie Means, also big within the Maha movement. They've both been doing the same speech on every single podcast they go into. And they have also been accused of being involved with pharmaceutical industries, and a lot of dirty stuff came out about them while they were trying to get Robert F. Kennedy Jr. both elected and then into the position he's into now. Some of the things have been disproven, and they both talk a big game, and they both talk a lot about they went to medical schools, both try to do the whole doctor thing, and that's when they realized that the whole industry is corrupted, and then they started speaking out against it, and they got kind of persecuted by both their ex-medical schools and the health centers that they were working in. They've been around the podcast space and the Maha space for about 2 years now. And before that, their history is a little bit murky. And also the connections that they've had with the pharma industry is still just like out there.
Yeah, and I will say this. I don't know if she's corrupted by the pharma industry. A lot of this is just rumors that are kind of swirling around right now. They may be trying to tear her down with these rumors. But I will say when RFK Jr. did get in, it seemed like there is some capture of him by the pharmaceutical industry, specifically jibby jabs, and he's kind of changed his stance on that, although he did put some good legislation in yesterday. So it's good to see that he's making some movements forward. But again, with her, even if she is partly captured, if she's willing to stand up on a lot of other issues, if she's willing to stand up on 9 of 10 issues, I'm not willing to look past it, but I would say it's better than anybody else that's been put in this position before, because the head of HHS is now RFK. This is now the Surgeon General. It seems like they're doing a lot of good things and saying the right things, where the people in these positions before were completely captured. I talked last night on Rumble what the U.S. government has been involved in on a global basis, and I can't get into it on YouTube because of the YouTube censors, but is more than just capture. It's pure evil. So the fact that there is this polar shift, I am liking to see it right now.
But it is interesting that they're picking her and not her brother. Her brother is the one that's more of a heavy hitter, also the one that had more accusations regarding being involved with the pharma industry. So that might be a strategic move. And because her brother was the one that started going on all the podcasts, and then they started doing it together. They give this whole spiel about how their parents let them be free thinkers and think however they wanted and explore and investigate. I've heard this whole speech she just gave like 3 or 4 times on different podcasts. So it does seem very prefabricated. It is important that they're talking about the family, the importance of keeping children healthy. But at what point does it just start becoming, the party line?
Well, if you had to pick between her and her brother, even though her brother is the heavy hitter, the fact that she is a woman, it is a good look for the Trump administration to have a woman in a position like this. I think would be the deciding factor ultimately. So, yeah, we can continue to move on here as more information comes in about her, because she was pretty much unknown to me. You knew a lot more about her than I did. I will be watching her very closely. And on this channel, although I do like the Trump administration and a lot of policies they are putting in, a lot of things I don't like, and I call it out. Same with Scheinbaum. I don't like Scheinbaum, but some of her policies with GMO corn and things like that, I do like. So I point out, I try to play it down the middle. RFK, like I said, I like what he's doing, but he seems to be somewhat captured. Kash Patel has not prosecuted the deep state like he said he would. Pam Bondi is completely failing, although on tonight's show, she may be starting to turn it around, and I hope that is the case. And then we have Tulsi Gabbard, who's so far doing a great job. And Trump is really able to focus in on these tariff negotiations, which after today is really changing the paradigm of the global economy. So he's doing a pretty good job so far too. And it's only been just over 100 days.
And Rafa says, Habemus Papam, which yes, we do.
Good to see you, Rafa.
American, and apparently likes to hide some things. We will look into it. I will look into it. Probably this will be the headline story for the Spanish.
Yeah.
Live that I will do tonight, and also for our live together.
Yeah. And I was very skeptical about, I don't know how long Rafa's been watching, but I'll just repeat a little bit. We were very skeptical if the tariffs would work, if they wouldn't work. This UK deal has really set a precedent and a template for Trump to use on other countries. If he's able to pull off a deal like he did with the UK with 4 or 5 other countries, this is completely going to reshape the global economy, and it ends up being a spectacular move for Trump. I was surprised he was able to negotiate this kind of deal with the UK specifically.
And so Rafa says he's from the US, yes, from Chicago. Haven't gone full stalker on him yet, but couldn't find much information. Yeah, me either. However, his name is a sign that he may be conservative, the name he chose. So Leo the 14th, I'm reading Roman numerals right. I have to double check that XV1 is 14. But sometimes I get confused. I failed Latin.
I will say this on Trump's, I think it was his inauguration day, the day they did it. He did go to church after with JT Vance. And I think they were surprised, and they weren't expecting an LGBTQ lesbian preacher. So,
well, that's because they went to, I think it was a Lutheran or a Protestant, one of those.
Yeah. So I think they're going to really judge this American cardinal, now Pope, on his actions. And even if he was a globalist in the past, I think they're going to judge him on his actions. And I think he understands after seeing this negotiation with the UK and how Trump's playing hardball with China and a lot of other players, even if he has globalist tendencies, I think he's going to have to play him down, because it's more important for him to get in close with the US administration than to play woke politics. Why? Because a ton of dirty information has been coming out about the Vatican banking system, how the Vatican was involved with USAID, how they were laundering money through the Vatican through multiple NGOs for abortions and other. Well, I'm not supposed to say that, and other things.
That's fine.
So I think they're putting him in there to play down woke politics, play down globalism, and to really try to get in good with this administration to avoid any economic scandals that the Vatican has been involved in the past 30 years, because all that data and all that information the current administration now has with the dismantling of USAID. I think what this says about the selection of the Pope and how it was selected so fast, even if he is a liberal, the fact that he is a cardinal within the US, is they are freaking out about the past economic scandals that the Vatican has been involved in with the US government specifically. And the fact that Trump is willing to out people within the US government, he'll have no problem outing the Vatican if the Vatican crosses him.
But I think also the fact that he's being called a centrist, if he was a conservative, like super conservative Pope, they would be highlighting that in every headline, but they're not. They're saying he's a centrist, so. I
think it's a compromise.
And he's from Chicago.
Yeah, I think it's a compromise candidate, but I don't like Pope Francis was there to play global politics. I don't think this Pope is there to play global politics. We have to see. I think what he's there to do is play damage control with the current administration, because they could completely dismantle the Vatican with the type of financial data they have on the Vatican right now.
And also just the fact that he was elected so fast.
Yeah.
It's been, a day and a half?
A day and a half. And yeah, so my guess is they're playing damage control and they're scared of the information the Trump administration has on them. That's just my guess.
And maybe on him too, because again, a lot of the things, the quick ones I've been reading, is that he was involved in covering up disgusting crimes from the church, so.
Yeah, so these are just my opinions on the show. A lot of the opinions I give on my morning show are really off the cuff. I gather the stories very quickly. It's the first time I'm reading them. So my opinions, I have a much more rooted out opinion by the time our night show comes around, but these are my initial opinions.
Yes. And I mean, this is literally breaking news because it happened as we were live. So.
All these stories were breaking news. I was literally writing down notes furiously about the Trump UK tariff deal. Like, that was massive. Then the Pope came in, which was even bigger news, but there was no information on it, so I didn't talk about it as long. And even some of these other stories were the Surgeon General was rolling in this morning. Mm-hmm. These were hot topics. Okay, let's play the Bernie Sanders clip. Before we do, let's talk about it a little bit. Bernie Sanders says no apologies for spending $221K on private jets during his touring of the U.S., his political touring. And this is coming from somebody that is a climate Nazi, or at least used to be. And yeah, I know. Sorry. Okay, go.
I'm the live censor.
Oh. Yeah, Ty's the live censor.
Let me try to get the volume properly.
5 rallies in a week. The only way you can get around to talk to 30,000 people. Think I'm going to be sitting on a waiting line at United, waiting, 30,000 people are waiting? That's the only way you can get around. No apologies for that. That's what campaign travel is about. We've done it in the past. We're going to do it in the future. 5 rallies.
Okay, Bernie Sanders is looking like a little bit of a elitist. Do you think I'm going to wait in a United airline like everybody else? The fact that he even said that is absolutely insane. He's used to flying on private jets, buying houses. He's been completely corrupted. He used to be one of the politicians a lot of people on both sides believed in, and then he completely sold out. They're trying to put him up as candidate because they have nobody else, but what they're forgetting is the whole world knows he sold out.
And what's ridiculous is that his whole tour is called Fighting Oligarchy Tour, and he's paying over $221,000 on charter flights.
And nobody
just in the first quarter of 2025, so just in these few months.
And nobody has a problem with politicians taking flights.
No.
Donald Trump does it, Pierre Poilievre does it, all these people
Trump
do
has his own plane.
The problem we have when they do it is I do have a problem when Mark Carney does it. I do have a problem when Bernie Sanders does it. Specifically, Mark Carney is trying to implement carbon taxes, and he's trying to manipulate the world economy by stifling people that overuse carbon and things like this. Yet when it comes to his personal use, he's allowed to overuse it. If you're not trying to stifle the general public from using energy, we have no problem with you using it. But when you're trying to kind of enslave mankind by how much carbon they can use, yeah, we do have a problem then.
And it's the hypocritical nature of it. And it's funny because on our other Spanish channel, I got a comment saying, the left is not the one that lies, it's the right. And I was like, one of the key things of the left that the right critiques is that it lies. And the fact that they're hypocritical, and most of the time they don't even notice it. Especially with someone like Bernie Sanders, who has basically burned every single bridge he tried to build.
Yeah, especially in recent times. I agree that actually both sides lie a lot, but
yes.
The right has now become much more populist, and they're no longer part of the uniparty. So now that they're in power, yeah, they're still lying, but they're also calling out past transgressions with Epstein, with internal workings of the federal government, with the deep state, with what went on with the jibby jabs. A lot of the information that came out yesterday was absolutely huge. So the fact that they're willing to have these come to Jesus moments and really call out the past transgressions of the government, I'm a lot more forgiving when they do lie. I don't think they should be lying, but when they do, the fact that they're actually telling the truth on things that went awry in the past, I have a lot more respect for one side than the other, and that's what would decide my vote.
And the problem with the left or Democrats or whatever you want to call it is that it's very much rules for thee but not for me, and they don't realize that less people start believing them as soon as they start not practicing what they preach.
Yep. And why don't we go into the last clip of the day, and that's going to be the Doug Ford clip, and I'll set it up as soon as you get it on screen here. So Doug Ford was going after Danielle Smith. Sorry, I'll set this up a little bit better. Doug Ford's the premier of Ottawa. Danielle Smith is the premier of Alberta. There's currently a separatist movement kind of happening out in Alberta. Doug Ford was teaming up with the Liberal government to smear Danielle Smith and to smear Albertans. And he did this for the past 2 or 3 months. And the fact that he's been doing this, he's just a globalist shill, and he's a liberal at heart. And this was yesterday, he completely changes his tune. And he says what good friends him and Danielle Smith are, how they need a good deal. They obviously had a meeting with the Liberal government, and they're realizing the separatist movement in Alberta is growing, and their rhetoric about demonizing Albertans and demonizing Danielle Smith isn't working. So I hope Albertans and Danielle Smith don't fall for this bullshit. Go into these negotiations hard-nosed, negotiate a good deal for Alberta if Canada is willing to offer it, and if Canada is not willing to start treating them as an equal to like they do other provinces, Alberta needs to separate, plain and simple. Okay, let's play the clip.
And I was pretty blunt. I said, it's time that your government starts showing some love to Saskatchewan and Alberta, because as I said, the last prime minister showed no love. Matter of fact, to the contrary. So it's nice that we're heading out there to Saskatchewan for an FMM meeting I think it's on June the 1st and June the 2nd, which is a good olive branch, and had a good discussion. So I'm a big believer of pipelines, big believer of getting rid of C-69. And we need to unite this country. And the way we're going to unite this country, as I mentioned to the Prime Minister in front of the premiers, show some love to the people of Alberta and Saskatchewan.
Or just stop it. Like this, 2 days before this, he had all the opposite views. And what was happening is he's trying to be the new leader of the Conservative Party in Canada, and everybody is calling him a globalist shill. Everybody hates what he's doing. Everybody hates his rhetoric. So he changed everything on a dime, much like Trudeau used to do. So do not believe what this man is saying. He is a liar. You can simply watch interviews from 2 days earlier, and he was saying the opposite things. I really hope Danielle Smith does not back down from Canada.
Yes.
Okay.
And maybe for her to become the leader of the Conservative Party if Alberta doesn't leave before that.
Okay, that's it for today's show. But if you want to tune in tonight, we're I'm back on the air with Nat and the Guy in Espanol. That's our other channel. And Nat has a show that's all in Spanish at 8 o'clock Mexican time, Mexico City time. And then we are back on this channel at 9:15 Mexico City time with Nat and the Guy on our other much more beautiful set. And it's me and Nat together kind of giving our opinions. And my opinions are much more fleshed out at night, as well as I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stories I was not able to get to on the morning show, as well as throughout the day, I continue to gather news. So I probably do 10 hours of news gathering a day, and there'll be a bunch of other stories on tonight's nightly show.
Of research,
I guess you would call it.
And
if you haven't liked and subscribed, please like and subscribe, because this channel is really hard to grow. We're based out of Mexico City, and it's YouTube won't push us to an English audience. So every like and subscription really helps.
And thank you, Rafa, for your commenting and for coming to give us your opinions about the new Pope. But ours will be a lot more researched and fleshed out by tonight.
Yeah. We didn't have actually the information
came in as we were live.
The information that Rafa gave me was more information than I had when I started the episode. So thank you.